Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us for our second webinar. We try to organize the webinars for our diversity in dentistry mentorships for the mentees. This is open to everyone. This is your opportunity to learn from those who have been through it. That way you can get firsthand information, firsthand resources, firsthand help. We are very fortunate today to have Dr. Dentonio Worrell with us and as our mentor that is going to guide the discussion. And we also had two dental students with us. We had Kassidy and Issa. I'm going to let all of them do their introductions, but I just want to thank you all so much for making the time to join us. We hope to continue to see you. We have a couple of questions, so please do ask your questions. And this will go on for an hour. And after that, I will provide you with like contact information if you have more questions. So I'll let Dr. Worrell take it away. You're mute.
I'm currently living in Hawaii, and don't hate me for it. But my name is Dr. Dentonio Worrell. I am an endodontist. I was a 2004 graduate of the University of Maryland Dental School. After that, I decided to pursue a career in the United States Army. So I've been practicing in the Army. I practiced for 5 years as a general dentist, and then decided to specialize in the greatest of all specialties, endodontics, root canal therapy. So did that from 2009 to 2011 in North Carolina, got board certified, and I've been practicing all over the country, and at this point, kind of all over the world, as I've traveled with the Army. But I'm excited and honored to be here this evening with you all. And I'd like to thank Dr. Haishaw, who I believe is also on the line, for the opportunity to do this. Thank you, Luma, for the introduction. So today, I believe we have two D1 students, and I will let them introduce themselves, but I'll just give you a brief overview. I believe we have future dentist Kassidy Barnett from Howard University. She's a D1 at Howard University, and I believe she's had some affiliations with ASDA, and she also received the National Health Service Corps. I'm sure she can go into that a little bit more. And then we also have Issa, is it Elabed, who's a D1 at UPenn, and he's done some interesting things in his undergrad as well, being, I guess, one of the organizations he founded was Dental Shadowers. I'm sure he can give some more information on that as well. Without any further ado, we'll go straight in. I'll let Kassidy and Issa introduce themselves. And why don't we start off? All right, I'll let y'all introduce yourselves first, and then we'll go into more details. I'll take over after that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the short introduction. And it's an absolute honor and pleasure to be here. Thank you so much, Diversity in Dentistry. My name is Issa. I'm originally from Florida. I pursued biomedical sciences major at the University of South Florida, and I graduated in 2021. And then now I'm actually a D1 at the University of Pennsylvania. So I'm very excited to answer any of your questions, and hopefully I can be as much of help as I can. And I'd love to share my experience with the application process, the interview process, if we can get into that a little bit. And if I'm not able to answer any questions, I'll leave my contact at the end of the session, and you guys can message me, and hopefully I can get back to you.
Okay, hi everyone, I'm Kassidy Barnett. It's a pleasure to be here as well. I'm glad I get to share my experience and help future dental students like yourself get to dental school. I am originally from Louisville, Kentucky, and I now attend Howard University, where I am a D1. And I majored in Pan-African Studies in undergrad, so I didn't have a science major. But then I graduated undergrad in 2019, and then I got my master's in physiology in 2020. And yeah, then I did some community college courses as well. So kind of everywhere. So I've had the whole 9 yards when it comes to applying. So ask me anything.
So that's great. So that's actually the first thing I had on the agenda for this evening. I was going to ask both of you to kind of just take, 2-3 minutes just to talk about your individual journeys from where you started in terms of like making the decision to where you are today. So if you could, in maybe like 2 minutes, each of you, if you could do that. And why don't you start off, Kassidy?
Okay, so if I'm being quite honest, I always wanted to do medical or medicine. So I actually wanted to be a pediatrician at first. Hated the dentist growing up, but I did a summer program called it was called SMDP. It's now called SHEP. It's like a summer medical and dental program, which is free. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but it's like a national program. And I did that, and it opened my eyes to dentistry. And so then I was interested in dentistry in like 2016, I believe is when I did that. As far as getting here, I spent a lot of like each summer I would do like summer programs like that, whether it was like shadowing or just volunteering, anything like dental related, so I could get more exposure to the field. And that's how I kind of fell into this dental path. And then I researched all the schools because all the schools' requirements are different. But yeah, that's just a little bit.
So for me personally, in high school, I did a lot of community service. So I knew, from a young age that I wanted to pursue, a career in healthcare, but I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. My sister was a pharmacist, and my parents were also in healthcare. But I wanted to follow something that I was passionate about, but I didn't know exactly what that was. So when I got into college, I was able to meet a friend. Her name is Krupa, and she was someone who was very passionate about dentistry. And this is when COVID hit, so it was really hard for me to know if I wanted to pursue a career in dentistry. So we decided to actually make an organization that would allow students to shadow virtually. And this was actually my first exposure to dentistry, as well as like everyone who actually ended up joining the organization, which ended up being thousands of students across the country, which I had the privilege to serve. And through this organization, I brought dentists through using Instagram and social media to YouTube, and they would live stream their sessions, talk about their journey to dentistry, talk about their specialty. They would show cases, and eventually this organization allowed students to receive virtual shadowing credit. So now if you go on the application cycle, you can put down virtual shadowing hours, which didn't exist before COVID. And through this organization, I actually met a doctor. His name is Dr. Davia, and he's the first exposure that I had to dentistry. He was a dentist that we met on Instagram. We brought him to YouTube to live stream. And he actually ended up being from Tampa, Florida, which was where I was from. And he gave me the opportunity to come work with him as a dental assistant and as a dental technician. And straight away, I just got crazy exposure in the dental field. I had no idea what I was doing at first. And he just threw me in there, and I learned so much about CAD, CAM, digital dentistry, and dental assisting. And right away, I knew that, I wanted to serve, and I wanted to serve people, patients, and my community as a whole. And I just jumped straight into dentistry like that.
Dr. Haisha was kind enough to put in a link towards information about, it's called SHEPET, the Summer Health Professions Enrichment Program. They're located at several different universities and schools around the country. When I was in Virginia, I know there was one affiliated with VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University, but I know they're affiliated with other colleges and universities, but a really great program. So it's something to definitely look into. All right, so, okay, how about some questions? And the first question I have, I guess for both of you is, how many months did you commit to the application process? And what was the most challenging aspect in that application process, and how did you overcome those challenges?
So I guess I would start with when I first took the test. So I took the DAT, I believe I took it in 2021, the spring of 2021. And I decided to apply to dental school in the summer of 2022. So because actually summer of 2021, so I could get in the dental school in 2022. So I took my DAT I studied from March to May, and I took it on May 22nd, I remember. And then I applied June 1st, the day the application cycle opened. And that way it gave me enough time to prepare for my interviews, because interviews usually start around July and August, and you want to give yourself a little bit of leeway with the application cycle, so that if you get rid of the application cycle, your personal statement, you can have enough time to prepare for your interviews, which can get a little stressful at first. But once you get into your first couple interviews, you'll kind of get the gist of the type of questions that they'll ask you. I would suggest people to prepare for, why do you choose our school? Why do you want to become a dentist? And a lot of scenario-based questions that interviewers will love to ask you about. But when it comes to picking the schools that you want, me personally, I chose to apply to 20 different schools. Now, everyone is a little different based on their statistics and a lot of the extracurriculars that they were in. So a lot of people will differ in the amount of schools that they apply to. Some are more comfortable applying to 10. But me personally, I wanted to stay safe, so I applied to 20 different schools. And I think a lot of people should factor in the location of the school, the curriculum. Something that if I had to change, it would be looking into schools there's actually a couple schools that are pass fail, some that don't weigh GPA as much, they don't rank their class. So there's a lot of different factors that if I had to change before I applied, I would look into those different factors that some schools offer and some schools don't. But yeah, if I didn't answer anything, I can definitely trace back and then answer that.
I believe the question was like the hardest thing. For me personally, it would be financially. The DAT is a lot of money. The application cycle is a lot of money. And me coming from college, I just didn't have the money. Neither did my parents have the money, because first doctor in my family are going to be. So it's like, I'm new to everything. I didn't know that the DAT was going to be so much. And then I took it twice. So it's like $500 a piece, and I pushed it back several times. So that was money. I studied using DAT bootcamp, which was another amount of money. So that was a big factor for me, just getting over the financial part. I don't know if everyone's able to do this, but I charged everything to my credit card. That's how I was able to pay for schools. And I only applied to 6 schools. But I will say, like Issa said, the biggest thing is your DAT. I took mine late. The first time I took it, wasn't ready. Definitely don't recommend doing that. Take all the practice tests you can, maybe just like 1 or 2, but just so you're like in that test mode, you're not fatigued or throughout it, because it's a long test. But yeah, I took my second attempt in October. And that was pretty crazy because I had already applied for dental school. Some schools will actually let you apply and then take your DAT after, but some schools won't. Like, they'll hold your application and they won't look at it until you take your DAT. So I was on the back end of everything. And yeah, I applied super late. Not to all my schools though. I applied to 6 schools. So I did 2 safe schools, 2 like schools I dreamed of going to, and then 2 that were like in state. So that's how it worked.
Yeah, and to add on to that, I think the DAT was definitely the hardest part of the application process. And for me personally, it was partly due to the fact that I took a lot of classes online for COVID. So that learning experience wasn't there. So when it came to taking the DAT, it almost felt like I didn't know anything. So I had to start from square one. And that's why it took about 3 months to study for the DAT fully. So someone asked in the chat, when is considered too late to take the DAT? I wouldn't say there's a specific date that would be too late, because the application cycle runs all the way into November. So I would stay away from applying or taking the DAT a little too late, like let's say August, September. But I've had some friends who've applied, who have taken the DAT in September and literally applied in November and gotten in December. So it's never too late, but to be on the safe side of things, I would take it maybe like March, May, June, and try to apply by August. And I think if you do that, you'll get the most interviews as possible, because I think dental schools start looking at applications around August. They don't really look at anything in June or July. So yeah, I'd definitely submit by August if I could. But if you can't, then don't stress about it too much. As I said, I've had friends who applied super late and still got in there.
What people may benefit from knowing is that, the rule, because there's a rule, right? You can only take the DAT, you have to wait, was it 3 months, I believe?
3 months, yeah.
90
Yeah.
days, yeah, in between. And you
Exactly.
can only take your DAT 3 times. So,
Exactly.
Oh, someone
Pressure.
said it's 60 days now, actually.
Hmm?
Someone just said it's they changed it to 60
Oh,
days.
60 days now. Okay.
Cool. All right. So the next question I had for you all were, what were the key decisions that made and actions taken from the time you decided you wanted to be a dentist until now? And then how did you prioritize these action steps?
Okay, I think key things. For me, it was definitely about getting that experience with shadowing. So before I even applied, I had a ridiculous amount of shadowing hours. I want to say it was like 100 for general and then like 300 for peds. So I would spend my summers, like I said, if I wasn't doing like a health related program, then I was shadowing just to kind of balance it out. So it never looked like I was just sitting around doing nothing. I was always working towards the goal of getting to dental school. So that helped a lot. What other key factors that I can think of? Another key factor was I did a lot of mock interviews before. So some schools will have like mock interviews are available, or maybe your undergrad will have it. I did those. I used the writing center as well when I did my application. So that wasn't even just for my personal statement, but for like the extracurricular activities section or my awards. I submitted all my documents to my school's writing center. So they would all look at it, and I had multiple people look at it. And there was one other thing I was going to say, but I can't remember. Let me think about it. Oh, when do interviews begin? Someone asked. July, August. I want to say schools start in August. For me personally, I was late. Again, I don't recommend being late, but I had the last interview at my school. So I didn't interview with Howard until January and got in February. But again, I don't recommend doing that. But there was other schools that I got into, like I had my safe schools, so to say. So I was accepted in December by other schools. It's just, I kind of knew like I had a dream school in mind.
For me personally, the thing I prioritized was, the first thing was shadowing, because as I said before, I had zero shadowing experience in dentistry. And if I was to pick a career, I had to know that this is something that I want to do for the rest of my life. And thankfully, I had the privilege of meeting dentists, through the organizations that I was speaking about before, and that gave me that experience to really find fulfillment in this career, and really allow me to know that I want to do this for sure. And on top of that, when it came to the application cycle, it was something very unique to me, interviewing with schools, putting myself out there. So I wanted to make myself as unique as possible as an applicant. So if you guys have the opportunity to do research, do research. If you guys have a pre-dental organization at your undergrad, go for it. Try to be, vice president, president. Try to throw yourself out there as much as possible, and try to stand out to these interviewers. You want to be someone that the school is actually interviewing you instead of you interviewing for them. That's the way I like to think about it. So if you can do research, do that, do organizations, do as much as shadowing as possible. Obviously, you don't need 500, 600 hours, but 100 to 200 is definitely the range that you want to shoot for, at least for the minimum. And top of that, keep your grades high. That's definitely super stressful, especially with everything going on in our lives. I can see how that can be very stressful, especially with the DAT on top of that. So if I was to take the DAT, I would take it straight after Orgo 2, because Orgo 2 was definitely the hardest class I took in undergrad, and the DAT had a lot of organic chemistry material, and that was just fresh in my head. So it was a perfect time to take it. And yeah, I think that's about it.
You gave me flashbacks because yeah, I took DT way back in the day, right after Orgo 2, and you're right, it was perfect because it was still fresh in the brain, you know, before all that useless chemistry drains out. Sorry, no offense to any chemistry majors. All right, one other
I was gonna
question.
say-
Hmm?
I'm sorry, I was gonna say, I definitely agree with him as well. Take it then. I did not take my DAT for the first time until I was in my master's. So I had to relearn everything back again, and that was terrible. And I studied by myself, and it was during COVID. So it was real bad. It was real bad.
But you're still here, so that's good. All right, so another question. If you knew back then, you know, before y'all started, you know, or when you decided to commit to this process, what you all know now as D1s, is there anything y'all would have done differently? And I think Issa, you already started to elaborate on some of that in your previous response, but maybe just to clarify to folks.
Don't bring a car to a city. That's the biggest waste of time and money. But on a serious note, I would definitely research all the schools that you apply to. For me, like when I applied to 20 schools, I literally just applied to 20 schools. I didn't really do enough research on every school, every program to see if it was a right fit for me. I only knew that when I started getting interviews and interviewing with the schools, and that's when I started researching the programs. And some of them, obviously, I felt like were a little too strict. Some were a little, some were perfect for me. So UPenn, in specific, they don't rank their class, which is something that I really liked. It didn't really put that pressure on myself and this competitive environment within the classroom, because usually when a class is ranked, you might have a little bit of competition. And there was also some other schools that were pass fail. I didn't really think about that too much, but I mean, if I had pass fail right now, I'd be breezing through dental school. I mean, I wish. But we do have GPA here at UPenn. So some schools offer a lot of great things. Some will offer like your basic things that a dental school will offer, like GPA, rank class, and some will be a little different. Like we were speaking about earlier about El Paso, they start their clinic in their first year. So every school is a little different. So I would definitely research the school as much as possible and see what's the best fit for you. And I think for a lot of people, location is number one. Tuition is definitely something that every school will differ in. I know some schools offer scholarships, so shoot for that. And yeah, I think I've covered everything.
And the question was for me to say something that I wish I had known back then. Was that correct? Or could you? Okay, something I would know back then. Something I would know back then. Oh, for me, it would have to be school requirements. So I did not know, which may seem kind of crazy, that each school's requirements are a little bit different. So for me, let's say, for example, my home state is Kentucky, and there's the University of Louisville, and there's the University of UK. And they're literally like 98 miles from each other, but yet one required biochem and one did not. So when I graduated undergrad, it was like, yeah, you can apply to U of L or the University of Louisville, but you can't apply to the University of Kentucky. And so it was kind of crazy to me that I was like, oh, what? Like I had to go back and take biochem. That's why I said like I ended up going to community college, because there was a lot of schools that well, not a lot, but several schools I wanted to apply to. I just didn't have those prereqs because my undergrad was geared towards just going to their dental school. So that's something that I wish I knew. That probably would have saved me a lot of time. I also wish I knew that majoring in non-science was going to be a lot, just trying to balance those two different disciplines. So I originally started out as chemistry, but I was on scholarship and they were like, you're not going to finish in this amount of years if you do chemistry. So I had to switch and I started doing prereqs for dental school. But yeah, the two subjects never intertwined. So it was a lot. Versus other people where they're like, oh, I did micro and bio, or like, oh, I did chemistry and I did physics and stuff kind of intertwined sometimes. That was not the case. And I was working crazy during undergrad.
Yeah, I can see how that can get a little annoying, because you said you majored in something that was non-science, right? So I'm sure it was really hectic trying to organize what's prerequisites that you needed to take. I did do a biomed major, but there was still like prerequisites that I still needed. So I remember, I think it was Midwestern University in Chicago, I think, and they required anatomy. So I got an interview from them, and then eventually they were like, "Oh, you didn't take anatomy, we can't have you." And I'm like, "But I had no idea that I needed to take anatomy because my school to graduate I just needed physics. It was either physics or anatomy. So I should have definitely researched that beforehand. But that's definitely one thing that I would look into prerequisites because every major, every school is different, and it might end up hurting you later and might lose you an interview. So you definitely don't want that.
Yeah. And then for those people who are applying as like juniors, you can apply and not have all the classes taken. So some schools will accept you. I forget exactly what the verbiage is, but you'll have to complete the coursework before you make it to class that August. So just keep that in mind. So even though like you're like, oh my gosh, I haven't taken like physics 2, you can still take it in your senior year, or I think maybe in that summer, as long as you take it before you come to school in August, you'll be fine. Thank you, because my brain's done after this week.
No worries. And so Dr. Haishaw has actually written a question for you both in the chat, and I'll read that in a second. But I also just want to preface, when you see the other questions that I've already written, Julie's probably smiling because Kassidy, you almost already answered the exact questions, and both of you narrowed in on points I was trying to make, which I think is beneficial to everyone. So you'll see in a second. But Dr. Haishaw asks, how did you organize yourselves in preparing to complete the application? Did you use spreadsheets? Did you set in deadlines? How did y'all go about that process?
Okay, so I think I'm maybe Issa, are you up?
No, you can go ahead. Sure.
Okay, sorry. So me, I had a whole Excel sheet. So like I said, I was doing summer programs, and this one program I did before SHPEP, they told me to make this Excel sheet of like date, time, what you did, what the event was called, who's your contact. And so I would do that for my shadowing. I did that for my extracurricular activities. I did that for my leadership. So when it came to my application, all I had to do was plug and chug. I just pulled from the Excel sheet into ASTA, and it just worked like that. As far as deadlines and applications, one thing I also did was, which I don't know, I wrote my essays and then I would just alter them for each school. So I wouldn't keep writing, let's say 20 essays, because sometimes schools, they have supplemental applications. So a lot of them will have like additional questions on top of your personal statement. So I would just write one good essay, and then I would just change the school's name. I'd be like, this is why I'm perfect for your school. And then I would just change it. I'm like, this is why I'm perfect for your school. So I was never writing the same thing or stressing myself out writing a whole bunch of essays. I was just focused on like 5 solid ones, and it worked.
So for me, I wish I was as organized as Kassidy, but spreadsheets just don't work for me for some reason. I do everything mentally, which is obviously not the best thing. But for me, I had like deadlines in my head. You know, I wanted to take the DAT by May, apply by June, and hopefully get interviews by August, September. But I realized when I took my DAT, I believe it was like May 20th, I had only 10 days to write my personal statement because in my head, my deadline was like, I want to apply June 1st. But that obviously didn't happen. And I ended up applying, I think, June 20th because the personal statement took me like 2 weeks. Letter of recommendations were something that actually pushed my ability to apply earlier because I needed 4 letter of recommendations, or actually I think it was 3. But some of these teachers were, you know, they were taking a little too long to reply to emails or writing the essays. So if I had to change anything on that note, I would definitely get my letter of recommendations earlier and set a deadline for that. Set a deadline for your personal statement. Maybe take your DAT first, like me, and then write your personal statement after. That way, you don't have anything stressing you out. I would definitely focus on the DAT first before writing any essays, because you'll definitely have ample time afterwards to do that. And obviously with the essays too, I did the same thing as Kassidy. There's so many essays that you have to write for dental school applications, but most of them are about the same thing. It was like, why do you want to choose our school? Why do you want to choose our school? Why do you want to choose our school? So the main thing you want to do there is write one really good essay, and then for every other school you apply to, go to their website, read some articles about the school, learn about the research, what new innovations and technologies that the school is offering, and incorporate that into your essays, and show how you would best fit into that program and how their goals and technologies and innovations align with you. And you'll kill the essay if you do that.
Oh, I have a piggyback because that just made me think of something. Also, when you're researching schools, some schools have an organization called like SNDA or ASDA. They're acronyms of things. And some schools have like impressions days. When COVID hit, I did all the impressions days on Zoom. So it's like I was applying to your school and I could also be like, oh, by the way, I also did your impressions days. Or some schools also have like pre-dent days or like admissions days where like you just take a Saturday out of your month and you go and spend like 5, maybe 4 hours at the school, and you get to tour it, talk with faculty, and get one-on-one with the students. So that was another way I was just making sure everyone knew my name. I was like, don't, if you see it come across your board, you know it's Kassidy, you have a face with the name. So.
I'm going to skip yours just briefly, Julie, and I'll come back to yours just because one of the students asked one question. So Samantha wrote, can you discuss all the different components of the application? Also, can you submit while waiting for letters or of recommendation or your DAT score?
Okay, so different components of the application. First off is your personal statement. Secondly, you choose the amount of schools you want to apply to. So I believe there's about 60 or 70 dental schools in the country. So the first thing you want to do is pick the dental schools you want to apply to. And there are supplemental essays for every dental school that you apply to. So some schools actually have no essays at all, which was the best thing ever. And some schools will have 1 to, I think the most I've seen was 3 essays. And you want to write maybe 100 to 200 words, and some essays even longer for these supplemental applications, depending on the question. And after the supplemental essays, there is the section where you can input your extracurriculars that you can write, I believe, 200 characters about every extracurricular that you've done. There's also a section to input your shadowing hours, your research experience, if you have any certificates like CAD/CAM certificates, or if you were a dental technician, or any other certificates that are related to dentistry. And you can also put scholarships and awards, I believe it was. And I think that was most of the important components of the application. And what was the second question? Let me see.
I think there's also like little sections. So like when I applied, there was a section for COVID, how that's impacted you. I don't know if it'll still be on you all's application. There's also a section about manual dexterity. So that's where you might have heard people say like, oh, video games or cooking. I style my natural hair. So my whole section was about natural hair and styling that. And I think that was all of them. Oh, sometimes there's sections for you to write like any additional thing that you just want the committee to know. So that's like, for me, that was my time to write about my undergrad major and why I picked that and how that's actually going to relate to dentistry. But I think Issa covered everything, and the letter of recs too.
Yeah, letter of recs. That was the one thing.
Yes, and you can submit your application. So I can't remember the exact dates, but like the portal, you can go in there and start working on your application, but you can't hit submit, I think, until June 1st. And so you can get in there and plug everything in. So like for me, I was nervous my first year when I was going to apply. And so I had everything plugged in for like a whole year in advance, and then it just transferred over. And that same thing will work hopefully everyone gets accepted, but if not, it'll do that same thing. Like if you apply 2 years in a row, it'll just pull everything from the previous year.
Yeah, and someone said, can you submit? Yeah, I think you answered that. I think for the DAT though, I think you have to submit with the DAT, but let's say you want to retake it, because I did have some friends who retook it. You can still apply while waiting to retake the DAT, if I'm not wrong about that.
You're correct. So how it works too, because again, I took it twice. Hopefully you don't have to, but I did. So I put like my first score in, and then I put the date of the second when I would be taking it for my retake. So schools would know. So again, like he was saying, some schools will look at your application without like your updated or your DAT, but some will not. So I want to say it was Ohio State that was telling me like, no, we're not going to look at it. Your application isn't considered complete until your DAT's in. But if you are going to apply without your DAT, a lot of schools recommend, because when you take your DAT, as soon as you're done, it pops up on the screen. So they'll give you a sheet of paper. What I did was I took that paper home, I scanned it, and I sent it to all my schools immediately. So they would know that was my unofficial score. And yeah, I really took it, and I'm good to go this time.
So I saw another question as well. It said, for the letter of recommendation, can the professor that taught you already have retired or go to a different school now be your reference? So the answer to that is yes. I think though it depends like how long it's been since the professor's taught you. If it's been like maybe 10 years, it might not be the best letter of recommendation because he might have forgotten a lot of details about you. I would definitely stick to in the last 3-4 years. For me personally, I got 2 letters of recommendation from my science professors, one from the dentist that I shadowed and worked for, and one from my research. And so you only need 3 letter of recommendations. I ended up having 4, so that 4th one, I was just emailing it to different schools as a supplemental letter recommendation. You can do that, you don't have to, but for me, I thought it might look better, and I had an extra letter of recommendation, so I said might as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say too, my letters came from the dentist I worked with, which I started off, I had an internship with her, and then eventually she hired me on to do like sterilization. So if you have a good relationship with the dentist, they might just keep you on. But I did one of those. I think I did from Chapet, was like my extra and 2 professors. So I actually had 1 professor from my community college, right? And then I had a professor from my master's, right? Because I think it's like, I think it's a certain time frame for your letter of recommendations, I want to say. But I also, in case people, 5 months, 5 years. I think that's what she said. I can't read lips, but I think it's 5 years. But also,
5 years,
if your professor,
sorry.
okay, if your professor forgets you, I was also attaching my headshot to my emails. I would send my headshot and I would send my resume. And so I was like, this is me, and I need a letter of recommendation, please. And I also, when I did get their letter of recs, I hand wrote them a thank you card. So just keeping it personal and professional at the same time. So
I'd also like to share, there was this website I used. So I did have deadlines about the letter recommendations that I wanted, and you couldn't, I think on the portal, you couldn't ask for a letter because you have to go on the portal and then send an email to whoever you want to submit a letter recommendation. Otherwise, they can't submit it. And I think that day was like June 1st at the minimum. So there was another website that I used to collect letter recommendations before June 1st, before you could submit the application, and that was called Interfolio, I believe. Yeah,
Yes.
Interfolio. And that was a really great website because if the professor submits on Interfolio, you can submit your Interfolio letter recommendation onto the application portal. But Interfolio will also tell you if the professor's made any spelling mistakes or any mistakes about you. So I had one professor actually who spelled my name wrong. So right away that might look bad on a dental school, like, oh, you had a professor who wrote a letter rec for you, but he didn't even know how to write your name. So that website by itself is I think it was like $50, but and you can collect all your letter recommendations earlier. So that way you don't have to worry about it later on. Because some of these letters might take a month to come in. So I would definitely get them in before June 1st.
Was how important was volunteering, I guess, in the application process? And and then another question asked, so I'll let you all answer that in a second. Another question asked was, can one of the dentists share how the requesting student can help them in writing a letter of recommendation for them? I'll take that one just for sake of time. For me, at least, I always ask the first thing I ask any mentee is like, when do you need it by? And because that helps me know where to put it on my priority list. And then, so definitely the deadline. Usually I ask for a CV or at the bare minimum, a list of accomplishments that you've done, over the last, say, 2 to 3 years, anything outstanding in that you've done in undergrad. And usually I ask them to highlight anything specifically in leadership, research, dentistry related, shadowing hours, volunteer hours. Those things help me to write a better letter. So
Yeah, I would definitely
I'll let
agree
y'all
with
answer
that.
about the volunteering, but
Yeah, I would
continue.
definitely agree with that because some of these professors, like when I went to University of South Florida, my classroom size was maybe 300. So these professors won't really get to know you on a more personal level. So I definitely sent them my CV, like you mentioned. And I also even offered to say, like, if you want to set up a quick Zoom call, like a little interview to get to know me a little better on a personal level, feel free to do so. And I actually got one professor to do that. And we ended up being on Zoom for like 2 hours. So that was a great way to get to know my professor on a more personal level. And I would like to think that it helped my letter recommendation. And I think your second question was about volunteering, correct? What was it again? Sorry.
I'll try to
Okay,
find a
so
specific question.
I would say it's definitely I would definitely make it a priority. So I did a lot of community service with the homeless shelter in my community. I had about 200 hours for that. I had a lot of virtual, because it was during COVID, so I had a lot of virtual dental volunteering. And I think that's still going on even till today, even though COVID is not a thing. And I'm still with dental shadowers, and we're doing a lot of volunteering options and events for students who want to participate on a virtual level at least, and that way you can still put that on your application. So there's tons of opportunities out there, and I would definitely say community service is definitely a priority. It was asked about in every single one of my interviews, and it's definitely something that dental schools look for, and they want to see that you're involved in community, that you care about your community, you're passionate about them, and that you're willing to give back and put some time and effort into them.
I will second that notion. Definitely volunteer was important. I knew certain schools that I was applying to was very like volunteer driven. And I'm very volunteer driven. So that was something that was really big for me. So basically in undergrad and like through my master's and any other schooling I did, because I've been in school forever, I was basically volunteering all the time, whether it was like mentorships or going to the homeless shelter. I was doing everything, even if it wasn't dental related, because I knew at the end of the day, I'm going to be servicing people who, yes, they're going to be coming to the dentist, but they're going to be coming from different aspects of life. And everybody's going to have a different type of connection. So I wanted to make sure I was able to connect with everybody as much as I can. So maybe that's like, I think I used to volunteer and play like kickball with kids. So it's like little things like that, just really being able to build that relationship with others. Also, volunteering was good for me. I think it helped because, like I said, I did I applied to the National Health Service Corps scholarship, and anybody can apply to that. So how it works is it's your not undergrad. Oh, sorry, been a long time. Professional school. So your dental school will be paid for if you get it for the full 4 years. So I did for the full 4 years. So I get full tuition and a monthly stipend, but as a no respect. Dang, I'm losing my words today. I'm so sorry. Yes, giving back. There you go. I have to do 4 years of service in an underserved area, but I wrote my whole personal statement about why I want to help marginalized communities. So it was kind of like a given to me. I was like, this is definitely what I want to do. Also, as far as volunteer, I don't know if anybody's done a mission trip or anything like that. Like I went to Ghana for 2 weeks and helped out. So that was something I talked about in my thing, and lo and behold, my dental school also goes to Ghana and helps out. So things like that, just knowing kind of what your school or what their kind of geared towards, centered towards really help. So yes, volunteering is important.
Yeah,
You're
I
going
would
to be
definitely add
providing
on
a
to
service to people. Yeah.
I would definitely stress what Kassidy said, and on top of that, they want to see. But it's great because now I've got to actually meet the committee, the application committee, the admissions committee at UPenn, and I've learned a lot of things about the way that they process applications. And one thing that they told me about my application that they really loved was commitment. So with a lot of applications they saw was people were doing community service, but like it was like 1 hour here, 1 hour there, 10 hours there. But what they really want to see is that you're not in 10 different organizations, 10 different volunteering sites. Maybe you're in one or two, but you're very committed to them. You're spending, 100 to 200 hours within the 3 years that you have in undergrad, committed to that community service site, that organization. And because they want to see that when you get into dental school, you're not just going to be throwing yourself everywhere, but you're actually going to be committed to, the different community service opportunities that they offer and different health sites that you're able to volunteer at. They want to see that you're committed and not someone who's just, everywhere all at once.
Someone asked, how do you know if a school prioritizes community service? For me, like you said, that's their website. And a lot of schools now are using Instagram. So get on their social media, like check them out. See, like, do you see them making blankets for the homeless? Do you see them doing clinics? Do you see them doing like free healthcare days? Like, just go and check them out. If that, like, follow one of the dental students too, just see what they're really doing or what their life at their dental school is, because all of our dental schools are different, but essentially they're all serving. So
Someone asked, do they see the amount of the total hours or average weekly hours on the application? So you're actually able to input the total hours and then also the average hours. So yeah, they give you both options. And then after you put your hours and your average hours, you have, I think, 200 characters to write about your volunteering experience with the site, or let's say if it's extracurricular, you can put your position, your task in the organizations, and anything else that you'd like to write. And I think you also have to put some information, like let's say it was community service, the presidents of or the organization, so that if they want to contact the organization, they're able to. So you can't just put any organization you want. You have to actually put some information. Let's say they want to contact that organization, they're able to verify the hours.
right, I think it might be like an email or something. That's why I said the Excel sheet was helping, because I would always have the contact information just ready, or even if it's like a website or something. Probably not the website though. Email's better. And also for those areas too, you got to be mindful that they have to, your personal statement, like you want to make sure that's grammatically correct, but also the little areas as well, like your extracurriculars, your awards, that probably needs to be together as well. So like I said, I literally put all my extracurriculars in a Word document, like bulleted the list and sent it to the writing center for my school, so they could just check little things off, whether it was my commas or just incomplete sentences or run-ons, because I can be wordy. So
I know we can go on forever, but out of respect for everybody's time, this is we requested our volunteers to give us an hour of their time. So we are 5 minutes in to the top of the hour. So if we could just share like our last responses, that way we don't keep you all that are volunteering more than you need to.
I was just going to say, so Hasti's asked a couple of questions about volunteering. So perhaps maybe, maybe we need to do a webinar just specifically on volunteering, because you could go deep into that. So, so just look out for that, Hasti. Maybe that's something that may be coming down the pipe. But why don't y'all, Kassidy and Issa, please put your, contact info in the chat if y'all want to. If you're open to it. Everybody realize that they're super busy in first year of dental school. So I don't want to put them on the spot volunteering their information if they may take a while to respond to you, but
No. We've been in their position at one time, and we definitely want to help as much as possible. I know it can be very stressful, but looking back at it, I definitely overstressed too much. So definitely don't put too much pressure on yourself. Live your life, enjoy your life, but also don't lose focus of your goals and your true focus. But I'm about to put my email in there, and I can put my Instagram and a couple other stuff.
Yes, Dr. Haishaw said, asked if you could put your dental shadowers info there as well, Issa.
Oh, of course, yeah. This is our Instagram.
Yes, I would second and say, yeah, don't stress. It seems really, really stressful trying to get in and everything, but as long as you're aligned and everything will work out. That's why I had to tell myself everything will work out because this is your dream and you're destined to get there. Just stay committed to your goal, no matter how long it takes you. So for me, I thought after undergrad, I was like, oh, I'm in, like I'm about to be right there. No, there were several detours, but I'm here now, finally. So, and I will put my information in here. My phone is normally on do not disturb, but you can text me. I'll get back to it eventually. And text me your name when you do, because yeah, I don't know. Now that I live in another city, these different area codes, I don't know where people are.
Yeah. And I don't know if Dr. G is still online. I think her two, Dr. Miriam, I think her two main things she has shared about like the whole application thing is look at the ADA website and make a professional email. If she's still online, she's one of our amazing mentors.
Yes, I think that's they harped on so I wrote down a bunch of stuff, but they harped on like everything. And it's nice to know like I graduated 10 years ago. I did a residency recently, and they hit all the points of my like gunner points to like definitely get in. So it's nice to see that all those things are still valid, but everything they said was like hot fire flames.
Thank you. And Dr. Lila, is she available? She's still, yeah, she'll join if needed, but if anybody wants to, I'll leave it up to Dr. Worrell to close it up.
Oh, okay. So then, thank you everybody for participating. Thank you to our panelists, Issa and Kassidy. I wish you all the best of success as you complete your D1 year. Hopefully you should have a good summer break. Usually, that's when you get your longest break. Although I'm learning all the schools are doing things a little differently nowadays. Thank you for having me. I was honored to host this today. And I also, I guess, want to say thanks to Dr. and Mr. Betten for joining in. Somehow they're coming up underneath my name, but I believe, I guess, I just met him or was introduced to him earlier today, but his wife is on the admissions committee at UOP, I believe he told me. And so that's probably another resource that we'll have moving forward. And he's a CASA, which is civilian assistant to the Secretary of the Army. Hopefully at some point we'll have like, maybe a whole webinar devoted to maybe just scholarship and, getting money for school. So.
Sounds good. My pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'll go ahead and stop.